Hello, my name is Adejumo. I have a background in information communication engineering, master's in project management, and also pursuing my PhD in project management. Professionally, I've worked in the oil and gas sector, um, technology, education, and agriculture, which I have huge interest in right now. By privilege, I lead hospitals. We have a hotel. We have some educational consultancy. But ministry-wise, I am a pastor and I'm a leader of our youths. And I help young people discover their purpose. I come from the family of Bishop Felix and Bishop Funke Adejumo. My father is the presiding bishop of Agape Christian Ministries. My mother is also a minister of the gospel. Together, God has helped them to be a blessing to the world globally. They've been able to build a legacy of faith, of service, of impact, and that continues to touch lives globally. I'm the first child. And this journey began several years ago with my parents, of course, starting from humble beginnings, but being able to stay the course with faith, with consistency, and wise stewardship. They've been able to build what we now call a family wealth and legacy. I would estimate that this has taken them over 40 years. Before I came in contact with Springs Wealth session, we had several general conversations about wealth, about stewardship as a family, but nothing as structured or as strategic as what we came to encounter we had when we met with Dr. Wesley Ogude the first time in Marrakesh, and then the consequent meetings that we had. And what that helped us to do as a family was to now see how we could build multi-generational wealth. And of course, family governance, the planning process, what this did to us was to bring clarity, and it gave us tools that we needed to take things to the next level. I remember that the next session after the first one that we had with him was now with my father and I, where Dr. Wesley Ogude of Spring Wealth Consulting, and came, and it was very detailed, very thorough. It was very structured. It was very professional. It had the session had a very well prepared agenda, presentations, and he was able to cover, everything from wealth governance to entity structuring to liabilities versus assets, multi-generational models, to practical policies that could help in our decision making as a family. And this was, like I said, very comprehensive. It was well paced, and for me, it was very highly impactful to us as a family. And more so, it was very valuable because Madonna and I came out of this with a shared understanding of where we were as a family and the steps that we need to take to move forward from where we are presently. The sessions opened up very honest conversations, about where we were, about the family trust, and how to sustain the legacy that my parents had built and how to move it to the rising generation, and how to position ourselves properly that things will last beyond where we were. Now, before this session that we had with him, I think one of our biggest challenges was clarity, right? Like I mentioned earlier, we operate several organizations, different businesses, but it kind of lacked a level of structure, a level of governance around it. And we had not fully addressed some of these issues. For example, entity structuring, asset consolidation, tax planning, a formalized decision-making process. All of these things were causing a leakage in the family wealth, right? And I think even jeopardizing the future. What the session did for us was to expose some of these gaps, and it helped us to build strategies to avoid them, and this focused on the major entity, which is the family trust, right? I would say for me, the key insight that stood out, was first the idea of building wealth in a structured level. He brought it from like level 0 to level advanced, ensuring that every asset is under the right entity. Also, there was the concept of the 5 capitals: human capital, spiritual capital, intellectual capital. There was social capital and financial capital. And all of this must be transferred across generations, right? There was also the third principle, which was also important to me, and that was of convergence, or the principle of convergence of dreams, where individual aspirations can still thrive within the family, within the larger family vision. And finally, the importance of policies, of documentation, of timelines, because without structure, the wealth really cannot exist. And I think I was able to understand this very clearly. The sessions with Dr. Ogude for me were absolutely revolutionary. It shifted our mindset completely. The strategies that he showed us were not just theoretical; they were they were really actionable. For example, now we are currently working on moving all our non-residential properties into a real estate company. We're ensuring that there's a proper entity structure, there's documentation, there are tax compliances. We've put in place, policies to guide cash flow projections, decision-making processes, better, even the family bank, where individuals within the family can take loans from the bank. All of these have been properly structured, which I believe, and I'm seeing clearly that puts us in a better position to build generational wealth, to family wealth. What stood out also for me was the clarity that we gained about our current level. There was no faking it. This is where we were as a family. Our wealth journey, it was able to help us to understand clearly where we were, what we called assets, what were liabilities, all of this properly broken down. The idea of family governance, and it was able to just help us to understand all of this and how to bring in all of these capitals, to build a lasting legacy. For me, Dr. Wesley Ogude is a genius. He was extremely exceptional. His depth and his breadth of knowledge, the depth of expertise, the ability to simplify complex concepts, right? It made the session both enlightening and practical. Absolutely, I would recommend not just Doctor, but even the Spring Wells Consulting, because they don't just talk about wealth; they provide actionable strategies that will protect, that will preserve, and that will multiply wealth across different generations. I think also the ability to be able to bring families together, to create an alignment between the grandeur generation and the rising generation, as he calls it, and to be able to establish structures that ensures continuity is priceless. If wealth is truly to outlive its creators and to bless generations, then what Spring Wells is offering right now, I don't think it's optional. I believe it is essential.